Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shehbaz Sharif.
And I'm Hemkor Saroya, and on the show today, US officials are headed to Russia to discuss a potential ceasefire in Ukraine. According to President Donald Trump, news comes after Ukrainian officials agreed to a 30-day ceasefire while Russia is still studying the proposal. Trump has warned that Russia could face financial consequences if it rejects the ceasefire.
Also on World DNA, the deadly Pakistan train siege is over as per Pakistani authorities, with all 33 assailants killed following a 30-hour siege. And following the attack on Jaffar Express, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif will visit Balochistan today to chair a high-level security meet in the province. We'll bring you the latest on that front as well. Let's start with the headlines. This is World DNA. Russian President Vladimir Putin urges army to fully liberate Kursk region as Ukraine hints it is pulling troops back in the face of rapid Russian advances.
Mark Carney to be sworn in as Canada's 24th Prime Minister on Friday, along with a new cabinet, which will reportedly have between 15 and 20 ministers, down from 37 currently, including the Prime Minister.
Representing 85.9% of the vote.
NASA postpones launch of mission meant to bring back astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, who have been stranded on the International Space Station since June last year. Cities, cites last-minute technical issues.
Former Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte says he is responsible as the International Criminal Court takes him into custody to face charges of crimes against humanity.
US urges UN Security Council to unite to call out Iran's brazen behavior related to its nuclear program in a closed-door meeting on Tehran.
Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to visit Balochistan today to chair a high-level security meet in the province following the attack on the Jaffar Express.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi returns to New Delhi after concluding his two-day state visit to Mauritius.
Russia's inflation surges to its highest levels in 2 years in February. Despite the central bank's aggressive rate hikes, soaring government spending on the Ukraine conflict continues to fuel price pressures.
US President Trump has issued a warning to Russia as the country remains tight-lipped on the proposed ceasefire with Ukraine.
Now, Trump said financially the United States can do things very bad for Russia, things that would be devastating for Russia. When asked about the possibility of Washington imposing sanctions to pressure Moscow into accepting the ceasefire with Kyiv, Trump was speaking in the Oval Office during a visit by Michael Martin of Ireland. The US president said the negotiators were headed to Russia right now for talks.
We have a full ceasefire if it kicks in. We have to see. It's up to Russia now. But we've had a good relationship with both parties, actually, and we'll see.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Washington wanted Moscow's agreement with no strings attached on a plane heading to a G7 meeting in Canada. Rubio said that's what the U.S. wants to know, if Russia is prepared to do it unconditionally.
If their response is yes, then we know we've made real progress and there's a real chance of peace. If their response is no, it would be highly unfortunate and it would make their intentions clear. So that's what we're hoping to hear from them. And
President Vladimir Putin visited Russian troops who have made gains against Ukrainian forces battling to keep the Russian territory seized in an offensive last year. In his first visit to the Kursk region since Ukraine launched its shock counter-offensive in August, Putin, dressed in army camouflage, hailed recent gains and urged his troops on. Putin urged the army to fully liberate the Kursk region, as Ukraine hinted it is pulling troops back in the face of rapid Russian advances.
Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov told Putin that Russia's forces have retaken 24 settlements in the border region over the last 5 days. Putin's remarks aired on Russian state television. Ukraine's army commander suggested his troops were pulling back to minimize losses.
For more on this, a correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Listen to this.
After weeks of criticizing Ukraine, on Wednesday, U.S. President Donald Trump warned Russia of severe consequences if Russia rejects a proposed 30-day ceasefire plan with Ukraine. This comes as the United States has resumed shipment to Ukraine of weapons, reversing a previous suspension. The Kremlin is reviewing the proposal while European leaders are still pushing for negotiations. Meanwhile, Putin strategizes his strategy and actions in the Kursk region as uncertainty prevails. Trump's ultimatum signals a strong push by the United States, but it's unclear whether or not Putin will comply. Additionally, Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy, will travel to Moscow this week to continue discussions with the Russians regarding this possible ceasefire deal. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, amid contemplation over how Gaza ceasefire talks are going to proceed, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that nobody is expelling any Palestinians from Gaza.
Well, and this is, of course, a retreat from his rather prominent stance, which was made previously. Listen to this.
Nobody's expelling any Palestinians. I don't know. Who are you with?
I'm with Voice of America, sir.
Oh, no wonder. Okay, Voice of America. Education process.
Trump made the statement as he replied to a journalist's question during a meeting with Irish Prime Minister Martin at the White House. He has previously said that all Palestinians should be removed from Gaza. Remember, he had said we should clear out Gaza, at least temporarily, following a peace deal. But speaking alongside Trump, Martin said aid needed to be surged into Gaza as he called for a ceasefire and the release of all remaining hostages.
Trump's switch in stance came as Arab foreign ministers met in Qatar with U.S. West Asia envoy Steve Witkoff to discuss reconstruction for Gaza. Foreign ministers from Qatar, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and the Secretary General of Palestine Liberation Organization were present at the meeting. They discussed the Egypt-headed reconstruction plan as well.
Now, the plan, which emerged as a response to Trump's plan to take over Gaza and displace its residents, and it has been rejected by both Israel and its key ally, the US. Meanwhile, a fresh round of Gaza ceasefire talks also began in Qatar with Witkoff present in Doha for the mediations.
Efforts are underway to secure a ceasefire as Gazans await aid shipments blocked by Israel to put pressure on Hamas. The UN has warned that supplies of aid are at risk of running out in Gaza. Israel halted aid deliveries 11 days ago, and the head of the UN Humanitarian Affairs Bureau has said that 11 days is already 11 days too long to prevent aid reaching civilians who so badly need it.
Now, in response to the aid blockade, Yemen's Houthi rebels have announced they will resume attacks on Israeli shipping Hamas has praised the Iran-backed Houthis for the move, calling it a demonstration of true commitment to the Palestinian cause. Meanwhile, a leader of US student protests against Israel has been denied legal advice. He is slated for removal after Trump's vow to deport foreign pro-Palestinian student demonstrators. Columbia University graduate Mahmoud Khalil, one of the most prominent faces of the protest movement, was arrested and taken to Louisiana over the weekend, sparking protests. And the government has not accused Khalil of breaking any laws, suggesting instead that his permanent residency is being revoked over his involvement in the protests.
His arrest has triggered outrage from critics of the Trump administration as well as free speech advocates. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said in defense that Khalil's arrest is not about free speech, but about people that don't have a right to be in the US to begin with.
He compared Free Palestine! Free Palestine! To aid our students.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has rejected holding negotiations with the US over a nuclear deal.
This after Iranian media reported Tehran received a letter from US President Donald Trump for talks. The letter was handed over to Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi by UAE diplomatic advisor to the President Anwar Gargash.
In negotiations, one must be certain that the other party will honor its commitments. When we know they won't follow through, what is the point of negotiating? Therefore, the invitation to negotiate and the expression of willingness to do so is merely a deception of public opinion.
Khamenei further added that negotiating with Trump administration will tighten the knot of sanctions and increase pressure on Iran.
Some inside the country keep insisting on the issue of negotiations. Why don't you respond? Why don't you negotiate? Why don't you sit down with America? I want to make it clear, if the goal of negotiations is to untie the knot of sanctions, then negotiating with this US administration will not achieve that. In fact, it will only tighten the knot.
Khamenei criticized the United States, saying Washington is threatening militarism, but Iran is capable of retaliating. The Iranian Supreme Leader also dismissed the claims about nuclear weapons, saying Tehran does not have any nuclear weapons and it is not seeking one.
In 2018, Trump withdrew the US from Tehran's 2015 nuclear deal and reimposed sanctions impacting Iran's economy severely. A year later, Tehran reacted by violating the deal's nuclear curbs.
Well, they haven't done that.
US President's tariff war against the countries the world over is creating ripple effects for weeks now.
And the impact is beginning to show. But in some instances, Donald Trump seems to be taking his statement back as quickly as he makes it. As of today, the 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports across countries have come into effect. World leaders are responding with retaliatory measures. European Union Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen has announced countermeasures on textiles, home appliances and agricultural goods, among others.
Now, this is in addition to steel and aluminium products. Other leaders also made strong statements on Trump's trade war.
Our countermeasures will be introduced in 2 steps, starting with April 1st and fully in place as of April 13th. In the meantime, we will always remain open to negotiations. We firmly believe that in a world fraught with geo-economic and political uncertainties, it is not in our common interest to burden our economies with such tariffs.
On the question of tariffs, obviously, like everybody else, I'm disappointed to see global tariffs in relation to steel and aluminium. But we will take a pragmatic approach. We are, as he knows, negotiating an economic deal which covers and will include tariffs if we succeed, but we will keep all options on the table.
Our government will continue to put forward a very strong case for an exemption, noting that the last time this occurred it took months for that exemption to be granted. We will advocate for Australian trade with the United States at every level and through every channel.
In the latest, Trump responded to European Commission's announcement. The US president has now said that he will respond to EU's tariffs.
Now, Canada has also responded to Trump's trade war. The country has slapped retaliatory tariffs on its neighbour. Canada's foreign minister made the announcement a short while ago, confirming that the country will undertake a dollar-for-dollar approach. Canada's 25% reciprocal tariffs will take effect on Thursday. In addition to steel and aluminium products, Ottawa has imposed the tax on other American goods, including computers, sports equipment and cast iron products, among other goods.
The latest escalation between Canada and US comes hours after a short-lived standoff on Tuesday. Trump had previously announced a pledge to double tariffs on steel and aluminium from Canada to 50%. But shortly after making the statement, the US president took it back when Canada made a gesture of its own.
Ontario's premier suspended a new surcharge on the United States on Canadian electricity. Doug Ford had threatened to place a 25% surcharge on the electricity supply unless Trump dropped all tariff threats against Canadian goods. Ontario supplies power to more than 1 million American homes.
The trade war has drastically impacted market volatility around the world. The thought of higher tariffs also has citizens of several countries, including the US, worried about bearing the brunt of higher tariff rates by higher costs for goods and services. And the result is out for Greenland's high-stakes elections.
The centre-right Democrats have defeated the governing left-wing coalition. The Democrats led by Jens Frederik have won 10 seats. The other big winner is the centrist Nalrak Party with 8 seats. The governing coalition of the left and the centre-left parties has come in third and fourth.
As none of the parties have a majority in the 31-seat parliament, leaders across party lines will now have to negotiate to form a coalition government. With Democrats emerging on top, the party will lead the talks with potential alliance partners. If the Democrats choose to form a government with a second ranking, Nalrak, Greenland's independence will be the biggest flashpoint between the two. Nalrak wants a snap referendum on separating from Denmark and favours closer ties with the US, including a potential free association agreement.
Remember, Greenland was a Danish colony until 1953. But now it is a self-governing territory of Denmark. With Copenhagen still controlling foreign affairs, defence and monetary policy, it has the right to hold a referendum on independence since 2009, and some locals see the election as a chance to secede.
The recently ended election was closely watched, not just by Denmark, but by US President Trump. For weeks, the Republican leader has highlighted his territorial ambitions about the territory, urging for Greenlanders to push for independence.
If Trump thought that he would have had any success and impacts on the election, he didn't succeed. Because the party that won the election says, as I just mentioned, that we have to build the roads to independence, and it might take several years.
The parties which form a coalition in the next few days will determine how Greenland's own ambitions overlap with Trump's goal to strategically control the territory.
Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has been handed over to the International Criminal Court in accordance with an arrest warrant.
These arrest warrants were issued for charges of murder as a crime against humanity. As he arrived in the Netherlands, Duterte said he is responsible and pledged to protect police and the military.
The ICC case stems from his deadly narcotics crackdown. The ICC has said that there are reasonable grounds to believe Duterte committed the crime against humanity as an indirect co-perpetrator during the anti-drug campaign that estimatedly killed tens of thousands of people. Now, the ICC Chief Prosecutor Karim Khan has said Duterte's arrest is an important moment for victims of his war on drugs. He added that international law is not as weak as some may think.
The plane carrying Duterte landed in the Netherlands after a brief stop in Dubai. Hundreds of Duterte supporters were seen outside a Dutch prison in The Hague as a convoy believed to be transporting former Philippine president arrived at the ICC's detention unit.
Full justice system! Send him back! For me, that is kidnapping because he just came from Hong Kong, as the reports say, and then they directly took him and put him in a private jet.
Earlier in the day, lawyers representing the former president filed a petition at the country's Supreme Court. Duterte's family has accused the current government of quote-unquote kidnapping the former leader. The petition filed in court now demands his return.
There are already arrangements made because I need to speak to our lawyers for him. Wherever he's being taken, we will head there with our lawyers and discuss our next steps there.
Now, prosecutors at the World Court have filed murder charges amounting to crimes against humanity against Rodrigo Duterte. The 79-year-old has been accused of funding and arming quote-unquote death squads in his crackdown on drugs during his presidential term back in 2016 and 2022.
Details allege that the so-called war on drugs resulted in over 6,200 suspects being killed. These include purported drug users, drug dealers as well. And this is the official number released by the police. Activists allege the toll is much higher. The development was created massive uproar and celebration in equal parts. Families of victims and activists welcomed the arrest and urged for a transparent investigation. However, Duterte supporters are crying foul over the ex-president's arrest.
Interestingly, the Philippines withdrew from the ICC back in 2019. However, the judges ruled that since the alleged crimes took place during the period when Manila was still an ICC member, the case falls under its jurisdiction. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. On the other side, language row continues between the centre and Tamil Nadu government over the new education policy as Union Education Minister accuses Stalin government of ruining students' futures. We'll bring you the full report on that front.
Nepal is set to dispose of China-gifted COVID vaccines amounting to over 4 million expired doses of the Sinovac Coronavac COVID-19 vaccine. More details on the other side. Stay tuned.
General Brice Oligui Nguema, the strongman of Gabon since the 2023 coup that overthrew the Bongo dynasty, submits his candidacy for the April 2025 presidential election. In a remote Maasai community in Kenya, young girls are learning more than just academics. They are training to stand up for themselves. And a Nigerian mother turns her crochet passion into thriving footwear business. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
Catch me on Token Money Magnet as I demystify tokenization for you, only on WION.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Imagine a world where owning your dream asset is just a click away, where wealth is no longer exclusive to the few. Tokenization, the game changer, transforming assets into digital opportunities. A revolutionary technology opening doors to a new era of investment. Don't miss Token Money Magnet, a bold initiative by Kalp Foundation. Only on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA. Let's start with the headlines.
Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to visit Balochistan today to chair a high-level security meet in the province following the attack on the Jaffar Express.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi returns to New Delhi after concluding his two-day state visit to Mauritius.
US urges UN Security Council to unite to call out Iran's brazen behavior related to its nuclear program in a closed-door meeting on Tehran.
Former Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte says he is responsible as the International Criminal Court takes him into custody to face charges of crime against humanity.
US President Donald Trump has issued a warning to Russia as the country remains tight-lipped on the proposed ceasefire with Ukraine.
Mark Carney to be sworn in as Canada's 24th Prime Minister on Friday, along with a new cabinet, which will reportedly have between 15 and 20 ministers, down from 37 currently, including the Prime Minister.
Representing 85.9% of the vote.
NASA postpones launch of mission meant to bring back astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, who have been stranded on the International Space Station since June, cites last-minute technical issues.
US consumer prices rise moderately in February, with higher shelter costs offset by lower airline fares. However, inflation risks loom as tariffs drive up price expectations.
Aston Villa breezes past Club Brugge 6-1 on aggregate in the Champions League. The English side will take on French champions PSG in the quarter-finals. Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif will visit Balochistan today.
And he's visiting to chair a high-level security meet in the province following the attack on Jaffar Express. Pakistani authorities said an insurgent attack on the train carrying over 450 people has ended, with all 33 assailants killed following a 30-hour siege. According to officials, the insurgents killed 21 hostages before they were eliminated by the security forces. All other passengers were rescued. Reports claim 27 off-duty soldiers were also shot by militants. These soldiers had been travelling on the train as passengers, while one on-duty soldier was killed in the clearance operation. Pakistan's information minister said that the military operation successfully reached its logical conclusion.
We thank God Almighty the operation that was underway in Balochistan has reached its logical conclusion. In this operation, 33 terrorists were killed.
Tarar praised the military for its efforts, saying no passengers died because of the operation.
These 21 people who were killed were before the operation, and then 4 FC soldiers were martyred. Before and during the operation, with the delicacy, skill, bravery and courage, the soldiers of the Pakistan Army, the Air Force, the FC fought with these terrorists.
The Pakistani security forces launched a rescue mission on Tuesday afternoon after the militants bombed a railway track in mountainous southwest Balochistan and stormed the Jaffar express train. The assault was immediately claimed by the Baloch Liberation Army, the BLA, which released a video of an explosion on the track, followed by dozens of militants emerging from hiding places in the mountains.
The insurgents held the passengers hostage using women, children and elderly as human shields. The BLA demanded an exchange with security forces for its imprisoned members. BLA spokesperson Jayan Baloch said that the group was ready to free passengers if the authorities agreed to release jailed militants, but authorities said the Pakistani troops engaged the militants, killing all 33 of them.
Balochistan Chief Minister Bukti said the state will never allow the enemies to succeed.
You attack a passenger train, kill unarmed people on trains, kill innocent women, kill children, take them hostages, and then we have this confusion here. We go and negotiate with them and respect them. Whoever does violence, whoever talks about breaking the state of Pakistan will pick up a gun. The state will completely destroy them.
Passengers who escaped or were released by the militants described panic as gunmen seized control of the train, sorting through identity cards, shooting soldiers but freeing some families.
The situation was worrisome. They would pick a few from one side and a few from the other side, take them out and shoot them. Few were begging them to spare them in the name of God.
They asked us to come outside, saying we will not be harmed. When around 185 people came outside, they chose people and shot them down. They killed many people, and after those inside were also killed.
We had nothing to eat, and we had to ask for water to drink. Every survivor shared each sip of water. By the grace of Allah, we survived today, but they killed several people. Our lives were still written for us, and Allah saved us.
Security forces have been battling a decades-long insurgency in impoverished Balochistan. The BLA has been regularly targeting Pakistani security forces and has also attacked civilians, including Chinese nationals, among the thousands working on multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects in Balochistan. The BLA claims the region's natural resources are being exploited by the state while the Baloch residents are being marginalized. Recently, it also increased attacks targeting Pakistanis from other regions. And there's no end to the war of words between the centre and Tamil Nadu government on the three-language policy under the national education policy.
Now, the Treasury benches clashed again with the opposition on this issue. Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan slammed the Tamil Nadu government, accusing it of ruining the future of students in the state for politics as it rejected the three-language model. In response, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin hit back, calling Pradhan arrogant and withholding the state's funds.
Pradhan said the DMK-led Tamil Nadu government had changed its stand on implementing the PM scheme, which envisages strengthening the schools managed by central, state or local bodies.
Now, the political war over the NEP is playing out in a big way in Tamil Nadu too. Tamil Nadu's education minister lashed out at the centre on the national education policy.
In a post on social media, Education Minister told the centre not to fix what isn't broken. He said the attack on Tamil Nadu's stand is not only misleading, it completely ignores the bigger picture. He argued that Tamil Nadu's education system has been tried, tested and proven successful over decades and does not require the one-size-fits-all approach of NEP.
The Tamil Nadu BJP president K. Annamalai has hit back. He said that there were big discrepancies in claims put out on the numbers of students studying in state education boards. He called on the DMK to rise above state politics, terming them hypocrites for putting their own children in private schools that follow the three-language model. The MDMK chief termed the issue little more than a political war.
The centre has claimed that Tamil Nadu's stand was actually a backtracking of its earlier acceptance of the three-language formula. It has called the move an election gimmick ahead of assembly polls next year.
What's been called Hindi opposition has long been a sensitive issue in South India, particularly in Tamil Nadu. The DMK has argued that Tamil Nadu has flourished with a two-language system, including Tamil and English. It calls efforts to include Hindi as part of the national education policy an effort to turn India into quote-unquote Hindia. The BJP claims that its formula will benefit people travelling to other states. And Nepal is set to dispose of China-gifted COVID vaccines.
And these amount to over 4 million expired doses of the Sinovac Coronavac COVID-19 vaccine. The Chinese government gave the vaccine doses in March 2022 under grant assistance. The Nepal government had sent planes specifically to bring the vaccines from China, but the vaccine doses were not administered to anyone, as the country's National Immunization Advisory Committee did not approve Sinovac Coronavac as a booster dose.
Now, to oversee the disposal process, Nepal's Department of Health Services formed a 3-member expert committee. The committee is in consultation with experts from the World Health Organization, Nepal-based vaccine experts and the National Immunization Advisory Committee to determine cost-effective and safe disposal methods. Experts recommended destroying the vaccine doses at high temperatures in cement factories.
But after initial refusal from cement factories and bricks to incinerate the vaccines, officials say they have convinced a Kathmandu-based private company to destroy the vaccine using an incinerator. Wall Street stocks recouped from 6-month lows on Wednesday as investors drew a sigh of relief following below-estimate US inflation data for February.
Now, this helped global markets regain their footing on Thursday. Notwithstanding the recent tit-for-tat development in the global trade conflict, stock investors' focus was on easing inflation. US President Donald Trump vowed to impose further tariffs in reaction to the retaliatory threats from the European Union and other trading partners despite the recent market meltdown. Justifying his tariff rhetoric, Trump said, "Whatever they charge us, we're charging them." Global markets have been whipsawed this year from Trump's escalating tariff wars.
With Wednesday's advance, the S&P 500 is 8.9% below its all-time closing high reached less than a month ago, while US stocks reacted positively to easing price pressure data. The question now is, how much juice does this bounce have? The blue chip Dow Jones index seesawed between red and green for much of the session but ended modestly lower. US bond investors, though, dismissed cooling inflation reading as recession fears from tariff wars dominated. Greg Basuk, CEO of Axis Investments in New York, told Reuters, "We're seeing a bounce today on the lower than expected inflation read and some dip buying, but Wall Street and Main Street are still looking for direction." He also said that investors' hopefulness about inflation cooling is being mitigated by the ongoing trade war strife. He then also added that for that reason, we really expect the uncertainty and volatility to continue here through much of March.
And on Wednesday, there was good news on inflation. However, the market reaction was muted apart from a slight lift to the mood.
Now, the reason? Tariff fears are already seeing companies nudging prices higher and risk higher inflation readings and recession. The US Consumer Price Index, or the CPI, rose 2.8% in February from a year ago, marking progress compared with the 3% reading in January. However, the relief could be temporary as the data did not fully capture a cascade of tariffs by President Trump's administration. The tariff threat has caused a surge in inflation expectations and prompted economists to upgrade their inflation forecasts. For now, bets are that the latest inflation print gives room for the Federal Reserve to cut rates in June.
But February's data largely predates a burgeoning trade war that could stall progress on inflation and hurt the economy. JP Morgan economists bet there is a 40% chance of a US recession this year from Trump's economic broadsides. Those fears could strengthen further as a real-time inflation gauge called the Truflation measure shows a complete collapse. The index started the year at over 2.75%. It has since plummeted to below 1.5%. That collapse is a clear sign of an economic downturn rather than any control over real inflationary pressures.
Now, what is Trueflation Index? Well, it uses blockchain technology to guarantee that all of its data is transparent, unchangeable and accessible compared to the CPI, which only updates once a month. Trueflation provides a more accurate and timely inflation insights. The index uses data updated daily from more than 18 million sources and is more up to date with real-time economic changes. The Trueflation Index tends to lead CPI by 45 days. Next up, here's what's happening in technology. Here's the latest. France's leading publishing and authors association has filed a lawsuit against Meta for allegedly using copyright-protected content without authorization to train its AI systems. The French publishers and authors have accused the tech giant of alleged copyright infringement and economic. Although this is the first such case in France, it echoes a surge of lawsuits in the United States, where authors, artists and publishers have challenged their tech companies over AI training data. In 2023, American actress and author Sarah Silverman, Pulitzer Prize winner Michael and other prominent authors accused Meta of using their copyrighted books to train its AI model. OpenAI, the company behind the ChatGPT, faces a series of similar lawsuits in the US, Canada and India.
China has unveiled its latest breakthrough in robotics. Look at this. This humanoid robot is capable of riding a bicycle and even carrying out delicate tasks such as using a needle and thread. Not just bicycle, the 1.3 meter tall robot can also ride a scooter and operate a self-balancing scooter with ease. That's not all. This robot can also accurately judge and respond to human facial expressions and vocal tones. The robot can also rely on its own intuition to solve problems and respond to unforeseen challenges. For example, it can learn to pour water simply by watching videos of humans doing so. All right, on to what's making news in the world of sports now. India's double Olympic medalist PV Sindhu has crashed out of the All England Open Badminton Championship in the first round. World number 16 Sindhu started strong and won the first game 21-19, but lost her plot after that. World number 21 Kim Gaeun dictated the rally's second game onwards and registered a 19-21, 21-13, 21